Okay, so let's talk about nuclear and scarcity as well. I mean, okay, so what are the objections to running down this road, let's say? Well, it's pretty obvious that energy is harnessed to serve the poor. I think that's incontrovertible. The mere fact that there was 1 billion people and now there's 8 billion shows how useful energy is. And the immensely high standard of living. There are no energy poor rich countries. So,
that's right.
Okay, so now the next issue is going to be...
There's some energy poor people in rich countries.
Right.
But there are no any energy poor countries.
Right. Okay, so now we face the issue of, well, we can't go to 1800 because there aren't enough sources of energy. It's a finite resource. But you deal with that with, so lay out why no is the answer. So we'll talk about and what the intelligent mix is. My suspicions are that the more we rely on nuclear, the more we can shepherd our use of fossil fuels, because fossil fuels are useful for fertilizer and for plastics, and nuclear isn't, and for transportation, let's say. So,
and a lot of other things, petrochemicals and all sorts of things that we use fossil fuels for that most people don't know.
So is it the case that it's foolish to use fossil fuel in many ways for energy if it's replaceable by nuclear?
So let's separate again our thought of electricity and molecules. Let's just, the simplest form we can do, electricity, molecules. Electricity is used for quite a few things and more things now. We need it. Electrons are very useful things, and electric motors are actually very efficient machines, more efficient than a combustion engine, the motor. The battery isn't. The battery is less dense than dung on a per unit weight basis. A battery is a lot less dense than dung, yes, on a weight basis. That's why it takes 1,000 pounds of battery to drive a car. A Tesla S is 1,000-pound battery pack, 7,000 batteries the size of your cell phone, and that under the whole floor bed. It has physics limits. Okay, so but let's do electrons and molecules. We need molecules for a lot of useful things, and burning them arguably is maybe not the best use if we had perfect other options for them. Now, I can electrify some things, vehicles, small cars, bigger cars. I can do hybrids for bigger buses. But because there's so much weight in that battery, when I fly here on an airplane, the whole airplane would be a battery.
Right.
To get me to go.
There's not much use just flying batteries around.
No, it's kind of cool. And it's an electric plane, but it's doing nothing else.
Right.
And so go up that density curve again. I'm putting jet fuel, diesel, in those wings. Really dense energy. And that allows me to haul weight in humans and luggage and freight and other things. So you have to think about the end uses of energy. It's not crazy to burn molecules when they're the only thing that will do that job. The rockets that Elon Musk launches and takes to space aren't flying on batteries. Those are on LNG, and they're actually on natural gas, but hydrogen too. So molecules have a great use for some things, natural gas and oil. Electrons have a great use for other things. We should try to get to the point where we're using the right form of energy to do the right job. Nuclear makes electricity.
Right.
And heat. You make a lot of heat with nuclear.
What's its utility potentially for transportation? I mean, we've had nuclear subs for like 2 generations.
Yeah, 60, 70 years.
Yeah, 4 generations, really.
My nephew was third in command, or my cousin third in command of a nuclear attack sub. I've been on it. It's an incredible little, I didn't get to see it, but the core is not very big.
Yeah.
And you're putting quite a bit of oomph to drive that patented propeller.
So what's the impediment been to small modular nuclear, given that we've actually had it since, when was the first nuclear submarine produced?
I can't remember,
mid-60s?
50s and 60s, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So we've had
also
these
aircraft carriers.
We've had small reactors for a very long period of time.
Yeah,
so
light water.
I know people are afraid of nuclear because of nuclear bombs, and so fair enough. But the bomb and the nuclear plant aren't the same thing. And I know these new plants, the thorium plants,
Yeah.
are radically safe fundamentally.
Yeah. When I was young, I was trained to be terrified of nuclear war.
Yeah.
It was the Cold War. I mean, in kindergarten, I got under my desk in drills and hid, preparing for a nuclear attack, Jordan. And because I knew the desk would protect me from a nuclear.
Yes, of course.
I was safe under the little desk. So my generation grew up, your generation, are scared of that.
Oh, definitely.
And there's still some reverberation in fear. Fear is extremely powerful. You know this better than I do as a psychologist. It's a powerful motivator. And it inhibits logical thinking sometimes. I mean, the beginning of wisdom is do away with fear. Okay. But that's the fear we were trained with. Young people today haven't had that fear of nuclear baked into them. They've had climate baked into them.
Yes, right.
They're terrified of that. And they literally are gutturally terrified of that. They are emotionally, psychologically depressed. Don't want to have kids, get married.
Well, that's
suicidal.
a feature, not a bug, to stop them from having children.
Okay,
Bjorn Lomborg, I think,
wait.
estimated that each additional mouth on the planet produces 4 times as much as it consumes.
Yeah.
That's the average.
Yeah.
So the notion that not having children is good for the planet isn't a very wise notion. Maybe it depends what you do with the children.
Productive in a productive world.
Right.
If you aren't allowed to be productive, or you don't have the energy to be productive, it depends on where you are on that productivity scale. But Maslow outlined it pretty elegantly, I think, when he looked at the hierarchy from self-actualization, kind of on down through love. But those bottom 2 tiers, safety, security, these things are made. I know those are addressed by energy and wealth. The fundamental physio things that we need, physical things we need, and safety and security. Those bottom 2 tiers in that pyramid, energy and wealth. That lifts people up. So that's what we're talking about here with 7 billion people, is the fundamental things that make everybody safer, more secure, and
more productive.
Food in your stomach, some clothes on your back, a shelter, some climate control, perhaps if you're living in a hot place or a cold place, etc. Clean water to drink. These are healthcare, education. These are fundamental things.
Clean water to drink and sufficient food is 95%. Plus plumbing. That's 95% of the health problems solved.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. That is literally what drives a lot of those things. So you get to 7 billion people, that's a lot of energy. And you ask the question, do we have it? Are we running out?
Yeah.
We would run out if we were using hay and wood and cutting, biomass and dung. There's not enough of that to do 8.3 billion people and growing. We can talk about population because it's fascinating demographics, but there's not enough of that. Coal, there's quite a bit of coal still left in the world. Hundreds of years supply in the U.S. Asia has a lot of coal, blah, blah.
Yep.
Other impacts of coal from burning it. That has a lot.
That's also a solvable technological
It's solvable.
problem. Yeah.
The thing that you have to do, though, you want to say, what's my energy returned on my energy invested? That's a metric, EROI it's called. And so how much energy does it take throughout the whole energy system to get useful energy out? With coal, you're mining it, you're moving it on trains, barges, trucks, you burn it. And if you're going to get out the SOx and the NOx and the particulates and the mercury and the CO2, each one of those things is a bolt-on system that runs on more energy.
Right.
So you're lowering your EROI the more you clean up that coal. And it's still useful. It still has a decent return even after all that, but it's expensive because every one of those things isn't just energy, it's money. So now I've taken coal from affordable and reliable to kind of expensive, more expensive and reliable.
Right.
China doesn't do all those things. Sometimes their scrubbers are on, sometimes they're off. Depends on what their economy is needing and the cost of electricity.
Right.
We don't do that here. You turn off those here in regulated societies, you get massive fines or go to prison, as you should. So that's the nice part about density again. Oil, a little bit less of those scrubbers. Natural gas, you don't need any of it. You don't need, CO2 if you want to remove it, but there's a little bit of particulate in natural gas, not much. Not much mercury, a little sulfur. Sometimes there's sulfur gases you scrub out, but a lot less work needs to be done to make natural gas clean. And we clean it up and we cook with it in our homes. It's not, I don't worry about that. There's some studies that say you should. I'm not. So that's the beauty of energy density again.
Depends on what else you have to worry about.
It depends on what you have to worry about.
Burning dung, natural gas is not going to be that much.
Looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Looking pretty good if you're cooking with wood. LPG is saving so many lives in this world, replacing wood and charcoal in huts and homes. And I'm not talking a few lives. There are 3 billion people and 2.8 billion people in the world today that cook indoors with solid biomass.
Right.
And 3 million of them die every year still, Jordan. 3 million people from breathing indoor smoke, particulates.
Right.
COVID.
The major pollution problem.
That's it. In cities outdoor, this is just indoor. There's another at least that many outdoors breathing indoor particulate pollution, real pollution. So you replace that with an LPG tank, liquid propane, you save lives, instantly save lives, or an induction cooktop, something that doesn't have that happening. It's an incredible life-saving technology, if you will. So on the abundance thing, back to that, here we are. There's a lot of natural gas in the world. Okay, a lot.
Oh, so what does that mean in terms of like supply out into the future? And I know
hundreds and hundreds of years.
Let's add something to that too.
Yeah.
Well, and it's complicated because what happens is that if scarcity starts to emerge, the price of the commodity rises, and the rising price incentivizes innovative ways of finding more of it. And well, fracking is a great example of that, which the fracking revolution, which is essentially unheralded publicly, what propelled the U.S. to energy independence in no time flat.
Correct.
And there's no reason to assume we're out of those options.
No, we're not out of energy options. We're out of ideas sometimes.
Yeah, well, price increase, that'll motivate
a lot of ideas.
More ideas. Yeah.
So in 2008, Mr. Obama brought me up to ask me to be Assistant Secretary of Energy under Stephen Chu. 2008, first term, first month, Obama, and I visited and we talked, and they were looking at me doing fossil energy, coal, oil, gas, strategic petroleum reserve, and other things. And I spoke with the secretary, and this was right as that fracking evolution really, because I know that it's kind of an evolution of technologies, came together. The Barnett Shale really kicked it off in 2001 and 2002 with George Mitchell, but by 2008, we saw the Barnett, the Fayetteville had gotten started. The Haynesville was coming. The Marcellus is just getting started. These are big shale gas basins in the country. And
you mean big.
Big.
They're huge.
They're big.
Right.
And oil followed. More technology. Natural gas is a little molecule. This is, I think you'll be interested in this. Why do you have to frack? Why do you have to crack rock? Okay. And here's why. And when you're cracking rock, what you're doing is putting water, which is not very compressible, under a lot of pressure, and then putting it into the ground under pressure and releasing that pressure. And that pressure release cracks rock down there a couple, 5, 6, 10,000 feet. Cracks the rock, makes these little teeny cracks. Why? Well, because the holes where the natural gas the molecules are about, they're so small, they're in the nanometer scale. I could fit about 100 of those little holes across the width of one human hair.
So that's the natural gas pools that far underground. They're not pools at all. They're micro reservoirs.
Yeah, there are 100 of those little teeny pools across one human hair. And so the molecules, it's not easy to get them out of there. Now, so you got to crack that rock. You got little teeny rooms, and you're creating little pathways, doorways, and hallways for them to flow toward a lower pressure area. And that wellbore, when it comes down and goes down and cracks rock, and then you open it up, you've created a low pressure pipe, and everything wants to go towards low pressure, like humans. Hey, less pressure, give me less pressure, I'm good. And I don't like the high pressure. In they go, and they start to flow up. So that's why fracking, hydraulic fracturing, came about. It had been happening again for 5 decades.
Yeah, well, I grew up in northern Alberta, and there were
cracking
was
vertical.
everywhere.
Cracking vertical.
Yeah.
And then the horizontal wells, they came together. So that changed things here. Our natural gas production in 2007-8 from shale, that's the name of these rocks, was about 4% of our natural gas came from shale in 08. Today, 70%.
Wow.
Of all
That's such a revolution.
since 07. And oil was essentially nothing from shale, and now it's 63% of our oil comes from shale.
Wow. Well, there's a great example of technological revolution.
Less than 2 decades.
Yeah, yeah.
And the oil molecule, it's a big complicated, remember, complex carbon-hydrogen chains. You can't get it out of those little holes very easy. You got to, technology continue to evolve to allow the Bakken, the Eagle Ford, and West Texas Permian Basin to produce oil. This is revolutionary. Now look, so that's supply. Won't last forever, but this is important. We've been producing those now for 20 years, some of those basins, and 10 years. The total amount of oil and gas in those basins is called the resource.
Is it accurately estimated, do you think?
It's pretty accurate. My organization did those studies for 20 years, and others have too. But we did that resource estimates of all the big shale basins at UT Austin and Bureau of Economic Geology. You can estimate what's in place. The reserve, and this is where language gets kind of funny, is what you can produce with today's technology at today's price. Price changes, reserves change.
Right.
It's not people finagling stuff.
Sure.
You know, I can produce more at a higher price. The price goes down, I can't. So the reserves change. And then you got your production. Of all those tanks, those resources, we've only produced about 5%.